For many who have claimed the power of prophecy, their gift is not a matter of birthright. Instead, its appearance has been linked to some life-altering event. Fatima, Portugal, 1917. 3 children believed they were given a glimpse into the future. 9-year-old Lucia, 7-year-old Francisco, and 6-year-old Jacinta claimed visitation by a beautiful woman who entrusted them with secret messages, prophecies. While many appear to have come true, one message is still outstanding, a secret known only to Lucia, the 9-year-old girl, who today is a nun, and the Pope, John Paul II. In 1917, no one knew what awaited this sleepy little community, but the impact was so intense that more than 70 years later, it has become a haven for the hopeful, one of the many places in the world where believers claim to have seen a miracle, and one of the few places where the Catholic Church accepts that a miracle took place.
When an apparition is stated by the Church to be worthy of belief, the bishop or pope go to the shrine. This certainly is a very strong recommendation to the Catholic believer. It's not binding. You can still disagree if you want to, but that clearly the highest authorities in the Church would not single it out in this way if they didn't think that it probably was true.
In the spring of 1917, Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta claimed to have seen an angel that told them that soon they would be visited by the Virgin Mary.
When the children first reported this to their parents, they were horrified because most really solid Catholics, even if they're not all that well educated, they know this does not happen every day. And usually when somebody claims it, it's not true.
But the children were convinced, and they anxiously awaited the arrival of the beautiful woman who would become known to them as the Virgin Mary. Then on May the 13th, 1917, the angel's prophecy was reportedly fulfilled.
The first appearance was where she had to identify herself to them, and as is often reported in apparitions of the Blessed Virgin, she was radiant, showing that it was a supernatural being.
According to the children, the Virgin Mary appeared numerous times with messages of prophecy. As years passed, many of these predictions apparently came true. The children described what may be the rise of communism, with the genocide of millions and the enslavement of nations. They also described what could have been the fall of communism in Russia. Back in 1917, these dire predictions were greeted with suspicion. It wasn't until the children predicted a miracle that even the most skeptical of minds were made true believers. On October the 13th, 1917, tens of thousands of people anxiously awaited the appointed day and hour.
The children were there, and this huge crowd was pressing in, and the rain was pouring down, and all of a sudden the rain stopped, and the clouds parted, and the sun appeared. And then the crowd saw the sun begin to move and to dance in the sky, as it was described, and to fall down almost to the horizon.
The crowd was in absolute awe. There were many of the free thinkers from Spain and Portugal there who were very much against religion or anything of this nature, who immediately were convinced and fell on their knees and started repenting and asking for forgiveness for their lack of belief. It was an awesome experience, and it did show to the world that something valid had been happening at Fatima.
Despite the so-called miracle of the sun, there were still many questions as to the validity of the children's story. It would take time, but eventually even hardened disbelievers would come to rethink the events of 1917.
This is very important, to follow what happens to the children or to anyone who sees or claims to have seen the Blessed Virgin Mary. One of the best proofs of whether it was really she is whether their lives are fundamentally and forever changed. And it certainly happened with the Fatima children.
Early on in the apparitions, the children were told that 2 of them would die and would go to heaven, and the other one would remain for many years. Now, this has absolutely happened, and it happened right away. The children died of the terrible influenza epidemic which was going on. And this is hardly a thing that children could have foreseen or would have created for themselves.
In the case of the third child, Lucia, we have overwhelming evidence. She desired nothing but the religious life from the time that this happened. She has been in the cloistered Carmelite house at Coimbra since 1948. This is the life that she wants, that she welcomes, a life of total devotion to God and to the Blessed Virgin.
45 years later, Lucia still lives in a convent. With her remains the last message, or perhaps a final prophecy from Fatima. Whichever it is, Lucia has only shared it with one other person, Pope John Paul II. Some speculate that their shroud of silence covers some future catastrophe, but it's a secret that apparently will never be known. But perhaps the essence of that secret can be found elsewhere. Garabandal, Spain. Another sleepy little town, another place to play host to reported supernatural events. The year was 1961, and the phenomena that happened here were eventually well recorded. But in the beginning, there was nothing but the words of worried children. 4 little girls, Conchita, Mari-Loli, Jacinta, and Mary Cruz, were enjoying a day like any other. They had been stealing apples when a loud noise marked the beginning of a string of events that would reportedly last several years.
It was pretty foggy. It looked like the fog became very bright, like a very white light. And I remember to hear a noise like a thunder. It was a big bump.
They became very frightened. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. And the oldest girl, Conchita, suddenly falls on her knees. Her head goes back. She's looking up toward the sky. Her complexion changes, and the other 3 girls, believing that she has become ill, get ready to run to call her mother. But they don't get very far because the exact same thing happens to them. And when they are normal again, they head in the direction of the village, and the people, seeing them approach, say, "What is it? What's happened? Why do you have such white faces, such strange looks?" And all together, in one voice, they say, "The angel, the angel, we have seen the angel."
In Garabandal, as in Fatima, the children were accused of having overactive imaginations. But many were still curious, and when the news spread, people swarmed to the village to await some sign, a sign that would give credibility to the angel's prediction that the Virgin Mary would soon appear to the girls. It didn't take long. Soon, everyone found themselves witness to the 4 girls falling into a state of mind that was known as ecstasy. And this is some of the actual footage that was recorded at the time.
When the girls fell in ecstasy, it was always with a crash. Sometimes you could actually see their hair bouncing. The force of the crash was so tremendous. And if they happened to crash on rocks, the people would be in awe, frightened that their bones were broken, but they were never hurt. When they got through with the ecstasy, they just stand up, brush the dirt off their knees.
People were shocked and mystified. Garabandal became famous. The crowds grew as the amazing phenomena continued. Many of these were captured on film. This is Mari-Loli supposedly levitating. More remarkable than levitation are the reports that while one young child was in this state of ecstasy, 4 men could not move her. Eyewitnesses were convinced that something of great spiritual significance was happening to the children.
There were many phenomena that took place that remain unexplained to this very day. The girls running backwards. This was common occurrence, regardless of the day or the hour. They actually ran as though they had wings on their feet.
Then the medical community arrived, searching for a more scientific explanation.
There was a time when doctors would burn a matchstick in front of their eyes to see if they would flicker their eyes and blink and wink. No reaction. They stuck pins in them. They flashed bright lights in their eyes. Nothing bothered them. Nothing hurt them. And nothing left scars. Never.
Here is Conchita, apparently in a state of ecstasy. Watch her eyes as the source of bright light is being beamed directly at them.
Numerous spotlights are falling on Conchita's eyes, while the child, with a celestial expression, keeps on repeating the words the angel is communicating.
Over a period of 4 years, the girls experienced thousands of ecstasies, and during that time they predicted many things for many people. However, there were 2 nights when the girls predicted future events that would affect everyone. That night became known as the Night of Screams.
The people began to follow them as usual. They said, no, don't follow us. You can't come. And when the girls got to the spot, they knew Our Lady was waiting for them, and they fell into ecstasy. They began screaming in the most terrifying way. What they saw has not been described clearly, except at a certain time, not a single motor is going to operate throughout the world. A terrible heat will come. And during this time of heat, people will look for water and they will not be able to find it. And they're going to attempt to kill one another in their desperation. The chastisement is more terrible than we can possibly imagine because it will come directly from the hand of God. The chastisement is conditional, and it depends on whether or not we comply with the message. If we change our ways in life and we really make an effort to repent and make our lives better, then we can hold back the chastisement.
It's been more than 20 years since the girls experienced ecstasy. Now that they are grown, they too question the whole experience.
It really seems to me like happened to somebody else, so I don't know. I just try to remember the little girl going back and forth, but I don't remember to think anything.
The four now live in different parts of the world. Their time in Garabandal has long since passed, but the events there are well remembered. According to believers, the end they predicted may be near. During the Night of Screams, a date was set, and this information was given to the girls. But they're not talking. Maybe they're unsure of what happened so long ago, but they have a date in their minds and are forbidden to release that information until exactly 8 days before the final moment. The events at Garabandal and Fatima are both decidedly religious in nature. Both demonstrate ways in which prophecy can be received, and both warn of a